Picture this. It's 1866, and the great Fyodor Dostoevsky is absolutely trapped. He's drowning in debt, he's got a crippling addiction to roulette, and he's been backed into a corner by a publisher who basically wants to own his soul. So he makes a desperate bet, not with money, but with his own genius. This is the unbelievable story of how that one gamble created an absolute masterpiece. I mean, you can just feel the pressure coming off the page in this letter, right? He wasn't just writing another book. He was in a frantic race against the clock to save his entire literary future from just completely vanishing. All right, so here's how we're going to break down this incredible story. First, we're going to look at the insane contract that started this whole mess. Then, we'll dive into how Dostoevsky poured his own addiction right onto the page. After that, we'll explore the novel's biting critique of society. And finally, we'll find out what happened after the author placed his ultimate bet. Okay, let's really set the stage. The year is 1866, and for Dostoevsky, life is a total pressure cooker, both creatively and financially. It was a total perfect storm. You've got the author of Crime and Punishment being hunted down by creditors, his roulette addiction is swallowing every last penny, and, to top it all off, he signs this absolutely disastrous contract with a publisher named Stelovsky, which puts him on a collision course with one single terrifying deadline. And just look at this timeline. The speed is just insane. The contract was savage. Deliver a totally new novel by November 1st, or the publisher would own the rights to everything he wrote for the next 9 years, for free, for nothing. For months, Dostoevsky was totally paralyzed by this, and then, with less than a month to go, he makes his move. He hires a stenographer and just starts talking. Yeah, 26 days. Just let that sink in for a second. He dictated an entire novel, The Gambler, in just 26 days. This wasn't just writing. This was a controlled explosion of creative energy, unleashed by the very real threat of total and complete ruin. So, what do you write about when you're under that much pressure? Well, you write what you know. The Gambler wasn't some story he just cooked up. It was the story he was living. He was literally gambling on his career to write a book about the very addiction that was destroying him.
And this really gets to the core of the whole thing, doesn't it? Was this novel an act of confession? A kind of desperate attempt at self-therapy? Or was it Dostoevsky's way of trying to analyze the demon that had him, to see it clearly by giving it a name and a face?
I mean, the parallels between the author and his creation are just undeniable. The main character, Alexis, is basically Dostoevsky in a thin disguise. Both are Russians floating around Europe. Both are completely obsessed with roulette, and crucially, both believe they've figured out some kind of system to beat the odds and find salvation in one massive win.
You know, in his own letters, Dostoevsky describes his protagonist as a kind of poet of the roulette wheel. It's almost like he was trying to separate himself from the character, right? To trap his own addiction on the page so he could finally walk away. He wanted to pour all of that poison into this fictional person, hoping it would finally leave his own system for good.
And this right here, this gets to the heart of the delusion. For both Dostoevsky and Alexis, roulette was never just about the money. It was a shortcut. In a world where they felt completely powerless, that spinning wheel offered this intoxicating promise: instant wealth, instant respect, and a feeling of control over their own chaotic destiny.
But you know, this novel is so much more than a personal confession. The casino itself becomes this perfect little microcosm of society, a place where all the hypocrisies about class and money and morality are just stripped bare under those harsh casino lights. So, who do you find in this world? Dostoevsky observes the whole scene with this incredibly sharp, almost cynical eye, and he sees pretty quickly that not all gamblers are created equal. The rules of society definitely don't stop at the casino door.
He draws this really sharp social line right across the casino floor. On one side, you have the so-called gentlemen. They play for sport, they pretend money is beneath them, they show zero emotion. Then, on the other side, you have the rabble, the desperate ones, who are trembling over every single coin. And the gentlemen look down on them with this total contempt, as if needing money is some kind of moral failure. And there is absolutely no doubt whose side Dostoevsky is on. Through his character Alexis, he's basically screaming that he rejects the slow, patient, respectable way of building wealth.
He'd much rather take the grand, wild, all-or-nothing Russian bet. It's this defiant cry against a society that judges the desperate while hiding its own greed. And then comes this absolute masterstroke. The family Alexis works for, they've been waiting for their wealthy old matriarch, the babushka, to die so they can get her money. But instead of a telegram announcing her death, the grandmother herself shows up, very much alive. And what's the first thing she does? She marches straight to the roulette table, and with the exact same fever as the rabble, gambles away a huge chunk of their inheritance. In that one moment, the line between the gentlemen and the gamblers just completely dissolves. Everyone's exposed.
So, okay, Dostoevsky meets the deadline. He saves his literary career. It looks like he won his bet. But that brings us to the most important question of all.
I mean, did it actually work? Did this unbelievable act of creation, this exorcism on the page, actually cure him? Did he succeed in trapping his demon inside the novel so he could walk away a free man?
Well, as you might guess, the answer is complicated. He absolutely won the immediate battle, he delivered the manuscript, and in this amazing romantic twist, he fell in love with and married Anna, the stenographer who helped him write it. But just 2 months later, they had to flee Russia to get away from his creditors. And in Europe, surrounded by all the same casinos, his addiction came roaring back with a vengeance. The exorcism hadn't fully taken. It would take years more of struggle before he finally placed his last bet in 1871.
And in a way, this was the real victory. Not the frantic completion of the novel, but this hard-won declaration to his wife years later. After one final, devastating loss, something inside him finally just snapped. The obsession, which he always called a painful tooth, was gone. He never gambled again. So in the end, Dostoevsky's story really forces us to ask what true risk even looks like. Is it betting your money on a game of chance? Or is it betting your entire life, your career, your very soul, on your ability to transform your deepest suffering into something that will last forever?